Hello. Welcome to the Back to Life podcast. I am your host, Sherry Overstreet. I am actually the writer and the producer and all of the things of this thing. And, maybe in the future we'll have some more people helping out. I do have my son that helps me a lot with technology because I seem to be illiterate when it comes to some of these things. And big shout out to him, Jace Libby. You are the best. And anyway, I wanted to talk about a few things before we dive into this second episode. If you are watching me, and I know probably a lot of people are listening, so I'll describe this best that I can. I have a couple of guests behind me, so if you're watching, you can probably see them. They're actually not people, they're wigs. And I have gone through this past couple of weeks with a journey of figuring that out and what that looks like for me. I didn't think that I would actually get a wig. And so I want to talk a little bit about that experience for myself. And maybe, if you have gone through this, if you have had alopecia or if you've lost your hair for some other reason, then maybe you could relate to this. I lost my hair due to chemotherapy. I did 12 rounds of chemo, and I think I was like six or seven rounds in. I still hadn't really lost my hair. And I was like, well, maybe I won't lose it. So that is pretty exciting. However, right around that time, it was clumping and it was coming out and it felt very strange. And I didn't like the way that it felt on my head. And so I went through this process of letting go of my hair and, I really have understood that there are a lot of attachments. There are a lot of things that we become attached to, a lot of things that I have become attached to. And I think that I had read, I believe it was Wayne Dyer that gave up all of his things. He had said, I'm done with all of these attachments, and he sold everything in his office and his house, sold the house, gave stuff away. He had an assistant help him get rid of all these things because he wanted to let go of things and things that were attached to. Now, I guess some people would say that hair is not a thing. I do believe it is a thing, that that it is it is part of us. However, losing it doesn't mean the end of the world. It doesn't mean you're dead. And I think that a lot of people, at least the people that I've run into around hair and hair loss around cancer, is one of the first things that happens. There could be a reaction to the loss of hair, and that actually becomes more important than the loss of life. And so to me, that is a very big attachment to let go of, is that the hair, it doesn't matter, it's going to grow back. Maybe sometimes it doesn't. In my case, it's growing back. So, and again, if you're listening, I have very, very short hair. I look like an army guy, maybe an army girl. I don't know. Anyway, so I decided that, I decided to go through this process of finding a wig, getting a wig. What is a wig about? How does this work? I have no clue. Again, this past 8 months, I've learned a lot of things that I had no clue about. So they say, I've read that, let go of what you think you know, because again, and again, the more you learn, the more you don't know. Something like that. I don't know. I read a lot of books. Anyway, so I decided that I would go through this thing with the hair, around letting it go and the attachment to it. And I wrote a letter to my hair, and it was a really beautiful experience because I realized that I had put my hair through a lot. Obviously putting it through chemo is a big deal. And then, we could talk about what I put it through in the 80s. Holy moly. Talk about lots of hairspray and crimping and stuff like that. So it's had a battle. It's had perms, it's had highlights and waves and all of these things. So anyway, I have some, the wigs behind me. One of them is the long one is named Sarah, and the shorter one, it's like a bob length cut. That one is named Carly. And they are pretty fantastic. And I didn't realize how fantastic it would be. And so I will be wearing those on the podcast here and there, mixing this up a little bit. I think the thing that I love about this is that it's this creative side of me coming out where I could actually just wear, however I feel that day, I could wear the shorter one or the longer one or whatever. I just think it's pretty fascinating to have this experience. So anyway, I wrote the letter to hair, letting go of my hair, the old stuff, and really it's actually letting go of an old story about hair and that how much it matters, and it really at the end of the day doesn't matter compared to your life, and at least to me. And so I just wonder what it is for everyone out there. I just remember like not wanting to go places sometimes because my hair didn't look right, and I didn't, and really it's not even about the hair not looking right, it's about the feeling inside, how you feel inside about yourself and your confidence. And I would admit to you that lately I was feeling very insecure. Anyway, I was feeling very insecure about this shaved head thing going on, this G.I. Jane look, and really it comes down to feeling and how I feel inside about myself. And I just wasn't feeling that great. And the last couple of weeks have been a little bit rough with, having to make some decisions that are very difficult. And at least for me, I feel like they're difficult. And anyway, you'll hear more about those things. I am an open book at this point. Anyway, so letting go of the hair, writing the letter was very powerful for me. And I went into having a head shaving party, and I had friends there, a small amount of friends. And it was just a really good experience. I felt happy about it. I didn't have a lot of sadness around it. When I wrote the letter, there was a little bit of emotions around letting go. And I'm just realizing that letting go is really key to a lot of things, and surrendering and not fighting it. Like the fact is I was losing my hair, and I could fight it and resist it. And I just chose not to do that. I went in to talk to a woman. Her name is Audrey, and she's amazing, and she's in Fort Collins. If you ever go to Fort Collins, go to the wig place and go see Audrey. She's awesome. And she is partnered with an organization called Hope Lives. And Hope Lives is a nonprofit that helps people with breast cancer or breast cancer survivors. And they actually supported me in getting one of the wigs. One of the wigs. I ended up buying two because I had support with one of them, which was really amazing and helpful. So I went to her, and she was talking about how there was somebody that she was working with, and she works a lot with people that are losing their hair, whatever the circumstance. It could be hormones, it could be, alopecia, it could be chemo, whatever it is. She was working with someone who just did not want to let go of their hair, and it was really getting really bad. It was, clumpy and rough, and it was coming out in clumps and all of those things. And this lady was just having a really hard time letting go of it. And she goes, I just really don't want to let go of it. I don't want to let go of it. And so I think that there's some fear around that. Like, if you let go of it, what does that mean? And I think for me, it was like, well, if I let go of it, then I have to identify myself as a cancer patient or somebody that has cancer. And that's not really necessarily true, because lots of people are shaving their heads. Women power, feminine power, let's shave it all off, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So there could be all kinds of reasons, and I could make up a story of when I see somebody that has a shaved head. I did notice that I was wearing scarves on my head, and now I've just become to this point where I don't even do that anymore because my hair's growing back, and I don't know. I love the freedom of not having the hair as well. And I just noticed that with the scarves, that people make up a story about that. Like, I think one of the big ones for me was being asked, oh, what is that called? Is that a sari, or like a wrap, like it's some, like, because it's a from a foreign country or something like that, or it's a religion or something to that effect. And I thought that was really fascinating and quite a story to make up, because that is not even close to why I was wearing a scarf. So I just think that we just have to be, like, I mean, it's just taught me to be aware of, like, what am I making up about somebody that has a shaved head? Like, I don't know if they've had cancer or whatever it is, and I don't want to make an assumption. And so it's just really important to ask people questions and talk to them and see where they're at before making up stories. So anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent, which I tend to do. And anyway, that's the hair thing. And I am excited to wear these wigs. I've already worn the long one. I haven't really sported the short one so much. And it's like not that short. It's like a bob short, if you're listening. And I would say that the longer one is actually more like my old hair than I even realized. The color is a little different. Both of them are pretty dark, they're darker than I normally would wear. For me, I was going a little bit lighter with the long hair before chemo, before I shaved it all off. I was going a little bit lighter with it, and it was probably making me more pale. More pale looking, since I was tanking and didn't know it. Anyway, so they're behind me, and I thought that I would wear the Rose Apothecary t-shirt because I am a huge fan of Schitt's Creek. And my sisters were kind of joking around with me about, like, well, now you could be Mora and have all these wigs and all of that stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, I want to dive into, more of the story here. Where I left off last time was the hospitalization and the experience of hearing a diagnosis and being sick and not really knowing what was going on, being in a fog. And I want to continue with this. And, I'm not scripting these because I just want them to be very organic. And, we talk, like, a lot of podcasts have writers, and I'm writing this through myself. How do you say? I didn't write it out. Like, I'm just talking, right? And anyway, I'm going to just talk this through, and whatever comes out is organic. And so the second part of this is that I had an amazing experience with this, with what happened. And I would say that I am incredibly grateful for all of this. I think that it's really important to be grateful for the things that you didn't want to have happen also. And that's not something I don't think I would have said before until now, because, man, it makes a huge difference when you have that attitude. It's more like, again, and I think I mentioned this before, this is happening for me, and instead of why me, why is this happening to me, it's happening for me, and it's happening for you, it's happening for somebody I connect with or whatever, because it is making a difference in other people's lives, how I choose to live this. And one of the things that one of the things that happened was I got up one day off the couch, and I was feeling very sick, got up off the couch, went to the restroom that's probably about 5 feet from the couch, and I just had this feeling or this knowing of how you handle this will make all the difference in the world. And gosh, I'm getting emotional even talking about this, because it's so true. It's made such a difference to me and my family and everybody that I've been around. So grateful for that voice, which I would call the Spirit, the voice of God, which I'm going to talk a lot about more here shortly. And man, I didn't know that was going to happen. So anyway, amazing, just an amazing words to come inside of me and come out. And I'm like, I could really resonate with that. And I believed it 100%. And so anyway, I want to go back to the couch thing. I was on the couch for a while and not able to breathe on my own. I had had an oxygen tank and the tube thing through my nose. And it sucked. Like, I don't like to use that word a lot. And it sucked. I did not like it. Did not like it, Sam, I am. And I think that what was happening for me inside was I just kept having this sense of like, this is not me. This is not my life. This is a dream. This is a nightmare. Like, this is going to go away soon. Like, it just didn't seem like me. And anyway, I was laying on the couch one day. I was sleeping. I slept a lot. Somebody mentioned that to me. They said, yeah, you were really sleeping a lot. And I didn't really remember that I slept a lot. Apparently I did. So I had this moment where I was sleeping, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this. My words are jumbled. I don't know if you've ever experienced this feeling of being in twilight, which is like you're kind of asleep, not quite. Like it's like an in-between sleep and being awake. And so I've had a lot of experience with this twilight feeling. That's what I call it. I don't even know what it's really called. Whatever term people want to use. I had this experience of having the statement come to me, just similar to what I had experienced in the bathroom, was, do you want to be healed? And I would say to you, that was the voice of God within me. And, before all of this, and I'm going to dive into a lot of spirituality and religion with this podcast, which, it may turn off some people. That's okay. It's, you get to choose what you want to hear or listen to or be a part of. And I don't have any judgment on that. Anyway, I have had the experience of believing that God was outside of me, or it was like this being that I looked to in the heavens, and that it wasn't really a part of me or inside of me or anything like that. And I was very religious prior to all of this, long time ago, and would read my Bible. And I wasn't, I didn't, I wasn't insane about it. However, I did read my Bible every day, and I did devotions, and I do them now. It's just different. And I obviously we'll go into that a little bit more. And anyway, I had this voice come through me, inside of me, ask that question. I knew without question that was not my voice. It got my attention. And I would just say to you, it wasn't like I contemplated an answer or went back and forth of like, yeah, do I want to be healed? No, don't. It just was a given. It was just, it's yes, obviously. I didn't even say it out loud. It was just a yes. And the next part of it was, you need to move. You need to move. Because sitting here or laying here and watching lots of TV, Netflix, and I was watching lots of bad things. I will be very transparent about that. Bad things meaning they're not bad to an extent. It's just what you're putting into your system. And I've been a true crime, you could call it a true crime junkie or whatever. I love true crime documentaries, blah blah. And they're not healthy to keep watching because it's a lower energy, obviously. It's very, very not very negative to the mindset. Wasn't helpful for me. It wasn't helpful for my body. And so I had that voice come to me, you need to move. And I would be sitting next to my son Jace, and I am, again, this podcast is dedicated to him because he sat with me a lot. He sat with me a lot when I was going through this experience of being very sick. And was getting me things I needed and was very supportive in that respect. And anyway, he had said to me, "Hey, Mom, like I gotta go to the mailbox. I've got to go to the mailbox, and I'm expecting something, and would love for you to come with me." And I don't even know if he invited me. I might have just invited myself. I just said, "Oh, I want to go too." And I said, "Could you be okay with going very slow?" And we were in the dead of winter. It was November. No, it was probably well, yeah, I guess it was the end of November when I started doing it, maybe beginning of December. And he's like, "Oh, Mom, it's okay. We'll take our time," that kind of thing. And so I started to do that. And I went without oxygen. And I just started to go little by little and very slow, because I was a fall risk. If I fell and cut myself, that could be not a good story later on. So I had to be really careful, and I would walk. And I'm going to tell you that the mailbox is really not that far from my house. Maybe, gosh, I don't even want to estimate. It's not far. I will just put it to you that way. I could walk there and back probably in a minute, like now. Back then, no. When I was sick, probably not. It took a little while. So we walked really slow, and we would go to the mailbox every single day. It helped me so much, just that movement. And I realized that, movement is incredibly important when you're sick. And stagnation is very hard on your body. And it is really important to move. And I know that I had read a book about a woman that she had stage 4 cancer, and she's been alive for like 30 years. And she had lots going on and lots of surgeries and different things like that. And she said that movement was something really important to her. Like, she said if she could just move her feet, she would move her feet back and forth. Something, got to do something instead of just laying there not moving at all. I really do believe that was key for me. And it's not a like, oh my God, I got to get up and go do a bunch of things. That's what got me in trouble in the first place, was a lot of doing and doing and running myself into the ground. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, movement, super important. So I started to get better, and pretty soon I was talking to my aunt, and I said, "I just want to wean myself off of this oxygen. Like, I'm having a hard time sleeping with it. Like, it this is noisy. That oxygen tank thing is really loud. So, the whole house can hear it." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is just no, we're gonna wean ourselves off of this." I gave myself a goal, which was to go down, get to a certain amount. And then I did that. I achieved that goal. So then I lowered it again. And then my aunt was really like, "Wow, you're doing really well. Like, this is amazing. You're walking around, you're up." Like, I was moving around more. I was in the kitchen making myself food. I didn't have to have somebody do it for me. As that's what was happening before. My aunt was really just taking care of me at every turn and going to the store constantly. And I think she lives at Costco and Sam's. She was always there. And "You need anything from Sam's?" I'm like, you just went yesterday. However, so grateful for that, and that she was there to nurse me back to health. And so within 3 days, I was off oxygen completely, 100% better. I had a oximeter, so I could tell where my oxygen was at, and I went from 77 to 95, so I was way better. Everything was going back up, right? My blood levels were really good. I went back into the doctor probably the next week, and I'm going to tell you, visualization works, because I was visualizing my platelets at a healthy level. I was visualizing my hemoglobin at a healthy level, and I was also visualizing army men going into my body and zapping out anything bad that was in my body. So I was doing all of that. I was praying. I was talking to God. I was, I shut off the TV. Like, I was in that space. And so thank God for Joe Dispenza, another person that really, it was something I could go back into my memory and go, oh yeah, I remember, Joe Dispenza healed himself from being paralyzed. Like this is incredible. Your mind is so powerful. And so I started to go, well, if he could do it, I can do it. And if this woman, the story I read about this woman who had stage 4 and healed herself by moving and eating healthy, well, that means I could do it too. So I have latched onto that and the power of miracle and the power that God has in our lives if we allow it. And so I was just doing remarkably better. And I remember having this moment of clarity around, do you want to be healed? And there is a story in the Bible about the Pool of Bethesda. I didn't even know I was going to talk about this. However, we're going to do it. So again, I want to make this very clear. I don't have a lot of, I didn't study the Bible very hard, and I didn't dissect scriptures and stuff like that. I would do what we would call SOAP journals. It's scripture, observation, application, and prayer. I would do that every single day, and that was helpful. However, I wasn't dissecting passages in the Bible. And so that's why this is really remarkable for me to experience, because things like God is saying things to me, or spirit, or the divine. I call God a lot of different things. Jesus as well. And I tell people I'm Jesus strong, and I also love Buddha, because I am not against learning new things and being open to new things. So I felt like I was led to this story again, and I had heard about it before, just briefly. I didn't actually read the story. So I dived into this story, and it blows my mind still to this day what I learned from the story. So the Pool of Bethesda, and I'm going to explain it because I don't know if everybody knows, and I want to give you my take on it. And please, by all means, do your own dive into it as well. So the Pool of Bethesda was a place where they would put people that were, and I say it would be the villagers, the villagers in the land, put these people way out of the city because they were different. They were handicapped, and I don't even know if that's the politically correct word. However, we're not on a politically correct podcast, are we? I don't think so. Anyway, so they put the villagers put the outcasts out to this pool, the Pool of Bethesda. And it was because they were different. They were paralyzed, they were maimed, they were there was something going on with them that wasn't, their idea of what you're supposed to look like. So they put them out there, and it's pretty far out from the city or the village. And this pool was outside. It wasn't indoors, and they had these huge canopies covering it because of the elements. So I could imagine it would be hot or cold. I don't know what the temperature was. Probably really, really hot. Well, the Pool of Bethesda was actually next to what they called the Sheep's Gate in the Bible. Now, for me, when I was thinking about the Sheep's Gate, I was like, wow, that is so interesting. Could you imagine being paralyzed at the Pool of Bethesda, waiting to be healed, and you're hearing the sheep getting slaughtered next to you? That really just did something to my heart. And not only that, hearing the sounds of it and smelling the smells of it, I mean, that just blew me out of the water, and it really got into my soul. And anyway, there was a particular man at the Pool of Bethesda that had been there for 38 years. Now, the belief around the pool is that the people at the pool were waiting for the angel of God to touch the pool of water. And when the angel would come down, and I'm totally making motions with my hands, anyway, the angel of God would come down to the pool and touch the water, and it would have a ripple effect in the water. And so the idea was that if you were the first person there to touch the water, you would be healed of whatever was happening for you. So this man believed for 38 years that he had to be the first person to the pool, to touch the pool of water, to be healed. So I just, when I was reading this and imagining like 38 years doing, I think it's 35, 38, doing the same thing over and over, like, and he's not able to walk, so he's low crawling, dragging himself to this pool every single day, every single time there's a ripple. Well, he's not able to get there, obviously, because he's still paralyzed. So Jesus makes an effort to find this man. And like he seeks him out, he knows he's there. And so Jesus is making his round to festivals. It's during festival time. He gives up the festival to come find this man and goes to the pool of Bethesda and sees this man and goes up to him and says, "Do you want to be healed?" And the man automatically goes into, well, he doesn't say yes. He goes into, well, I'm not able to get there and people are walking over me and, like, it's not fair kind of thing. And that actually reminds me of a victim response, like a victim mentality. Now, I can understand why, though, because goodness, like if you were there for 38 years doing that, like you might be in that. And, also the other thing that came to me with this passage was that I don't think that anybody at the pool of Bethesda knew who Jesus was. And so Jesus was making an example out of this man, like, here I am, I'm here to heal you. And so everybody in the pool is going to know, right? Everybody's going to see it, and they're going to know that they don't have to wait for this ripple thing to happen, or the angel of God to sit, touch the pool and rush to it. And I can imagine there's probably quite a bit of people at this pool. Anyway, so Jesus doesn't even give him any time to answer. He just heals him. The guy answers, obviously, and Jesus doesn't buy into any of that stuff. He's like, well, whatever, dude, we're still going to heal you, whether you like it or not. And so the reason why I know that the man doesn't know who Jesus is because he's walking around, because Jesus says, pick up your mat and walk. So he's walking around the village now with his mat, and everyone's like, wait, what are you doing? He's like, oh, well, I don't know who this guy was that healed me. So Jesus had to actually come back to him and say, look, I'm the one that did it. So, like, just to let you know. And so I shared this story because it really helped me so much. Like, it's almost like a foundation for me of healing, where it's like, wait a minute, I could always go back to this. Like, there are possibilities of miracles and if he did it before, he can do it again, right? So, and, when I say that God is God, the voice of God is within me, really it is, and the kingdom of God is, the kingdom of heaven is within us. And so it's such a different place for me than where I was before, because God was mostly external for me. And not anymore. Now it's more like channeling him. And a lot of Christians may not believe in the channeling part. I don't know, and I don't want to place that on people. However, I know that when I was a hardcore Christian, it was like, you don't believe in angels or tarot cards or angel cards or Harry Potter books or anything like that because that is like demonic. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that at all anymore. So, and I think that my problem before was conforming into what everybody else was believing and what everybody else was telling me to believe. And now I'm more in a place of like, wait a minute, like I'm gonna question things. It's not a judgment. It's just like, well, wait a minute, like what about this or what about that? And God's unconditional love is so important, and being called to love just like that. And that's where I'm at with it. So that's the pull of Bethesda. That is the second part of this. And I wanted to leave you with one really cool thing that happened. I do believe that there has been a massive healing in my body, and it continues to happen. And somebody said to me, and I believe, and I'm actually going to interview this person here in the future, which I'm so excited about. And she had said to me, the difference between me and somebody having a sudden death experience is that I know what's happening. And since I get to have that gift of knowing what's happening, I get to choose something different, right? So somebody having like a major car accident out of nowhere, they don't know what's happening. Like they didn't get a chance to like do anything different, right? And so this is actually a beautiful gift. And again, being grateful for, I'm going to close with this, being grateful for those things that you didn't want to have happen is key. And so I want to end here now, and thank you so much for listening in or watching or whatever channel you're on. I'm on, Back to Life is on Amazon Music and Audible. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube, and it's also on iTunes just recently, which is super exciting. I don't even have an iPhone. I might need to get one now because since I'm on iTunes, I don't know. Anyway, you guys are all awesome. Have a great, great, great day.